What's up, Thrashers, and welcome to yet another episode of the Mosh Pit Reviews, where I review metal or hard rock albums in the calendar year of 2020, and we already got our second review, and this was voted on by you people who watch these videos that went to the community section of my YouTube page, saw the latest poll, and voted for this album to be the one that I would do the video review for. Now, this past weekend, or week, was actually quite a lot of albums that I haven't gotten to yet, but this was the one that got the most votes, that more people wanted to hear me talk about, and that is the brand new album from Canadian thrashing legends Annihilator, and it's called Ballistic, Sadistic. So a little history lesson on those of you who are not familiar with the band Annihilator. Annihilator is a Canadian thrash metal band that formed in the mid-80s out of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and was created by guitar legend Jeff Waters. And fun fact, Jeff Waters was actually in 1989 approached by Megadeth's Dave Mustaine to join Megadeth, but Jeff turned him down so he could stay in Annihilator since they were signed to Roadrunner Records at the time. But goes to show you how good of a guitar player Jeff really is, considering Dave, arguably one of the greatest metal guitarists of all time, asked Jeff to join Megadeth. So it kind of goes to show you how good Jeff is on guitar. Their first album came out in '89, Alice in Hell, which is an absolute classic in the genre of thrash, incorporating some technicality and progressive song structures into the music, and they've kind of stuck it out. While they've changed sounds over the years, the thrash element has never really gone away. They've been through phases where they were like a traditional heavy metal with thrash elements to a fusion of groove and thrash, kind of like Pantera. Nowadays are kind of back, so to speak, to their thrash metal roots. Not so much a prog thrash band really anymore, more just a straightforward thrash metal band. But with Ballistic Sadistic being their latest, I can't remember how many albums it makes. It's definitely over 10, I would say. And also for this album, Jeff Waters actually takes over vocal duties on the album. So you're hearing him sing all of these tracks, and he has a decent background singing voice, so... And I've not listened to an Annihilator album in a long time, so this is definitely a nice, refreshing treat for me, being a big fan of thrash metal music. So, it's a 10-track affair, 45 minutes long, which is the standard almost for most thrash metal acts, depending on who they are. Now, lyrically speaking, the whole album's basically all about, like, being yourself, fighting against those who oppress you, perhaps even a little bit of political commentary thrown into the mix, particularly in songs like I Am Warfare and Riot, kind of following that veneer. But then you have other songs lyrically that kind of fall into that more left field, like fuck you kind of idea, like The Attitude. It's all about going up against people who have a bad attitude and just saying fuck you. Like, I can take that depending on the band. If it was done in like a childish manner and say Five Finger Death Punch, I would have hated it. But here it actually works, because thrash metal is all about that fuck you attitude and not giving a shit what anyone thinks of you and just being yourself. After all, I try and be myself all the time on videos, and hell, my channel name is Thrash Maniac, so it fits. Isn't that what the phrase full circle means? I'm probably wrong, but you get the point. And then even songs about killing and death, tracks like Lip Service, One Wrong Move, Out With the Garbage, and even some of the more evil imagery hinted in the song Dressed Up for Evil. So lyrically speaking, this album's going all over the place. You get some political stuff, some rebellious stuff, some evil stuff, some death stuff. So lyrically speaking, Annihilator is trying to go every which way possible when it comes to writing lyrics. Musically speaking, there's a good balance between like the thrashing mayhem of classic Annihilator But whereas I brought up earlier that they've become more of a straightforward thrash band rather than the prog thrash band they were when they began, musically speaking, it's pretty basic, like verse, chorus, bridge. There may be a track or two that has that more progressive veneer in terms of how the song is put together. Like, I think a lot of people get the term progressive a little bit mixed up. Some people think that being a progressive band means always about writing long songs and doing a bunch of time signature shifts and technical wizardry. It's not necessarily that. To me, what the term progressive means in music is writing songs that is not verse, chorus, bridge, or vice versa. It's all about, like, going all over the place in terms of how the songs are put together. I could even make the argument that some Asphyx songs could be considered progressive, but that's a debate for another time. But that's just, in my opinion, what I think progressive is all about. It's about not writing typical song-structured songs. While, for the most part, this album is, like, basic song structures. I know I messed saying that up, but you get the idea. Most of the album has the basic songwriting trope of verse, chorus, bridge. But for thrash metal, it's kind of the standard depending on the band. There are some bands that will go into that more progressive songwriting trope. With Annihilator going into that more straightforward sound, it does work considering thrash metal in its infancy back in the early 80s. Most of the bands were writing like catchy songs with a thrash metal writing sensibility about playing fast, being aggressive and gnarly and heavy as possible, and at the time as extreme as they possibly could, because remember, thrash metal was the first extreme metal subgenre ever created, and it's what gave birth to what you get in extreme metal now with black metal, death metal, grindcore. I could go on and on about it. But overall, to me, I know this album might get mixed reviews because of how somewhat basic the writing process was in terms of the structures, being verse, chorus, bridge, rather than the technical, progressive songwriting style on their early albums. But it works well, especially in this day and age of thrash metal where some bands are kind of falling into that a little bit. There are still those that are willing to explore with their sound. Annihilator going from exploring to being straightforward, to me it doesn't feel like it's necessarily a bad thing. It might be a bit of a bad thing in the sense that some of the songs do kind of feel a bit stale at times. There were a couple of tracks where I felt the way it was put together felt a little bit stale and stagnant. But overall, top to bottom, I enjoyed this album. It was very catchy. There are a lot of catchy songs on here. And to me, it was well recorded, well produced, and it was a fun album, which is why I'm going to give it a 30 out of 40. This is a solid release. I don't see it being album of the year worthy unless somehow I go back to it over and over and over and I just get into it more. Then maybe it has a shot, but for now, it's a 30 out of 40. It's a solid album. It's pretty good for the most part. I would highly recommend anyone who's into thrash and Annihilator will definitely like this album. But for those who want to have a little bit more exploration within the thrash metal world, this may not necessarily be for you. But for me, being a fan of thrash metal as a whole, and it's my favorite style of music, I enjoyed it for the most part. But anyways, what did you guys think of Ballistic, Sadistic by Annihilator? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, peace out, and I will see you soon. Well, it was Dorian Facepuncher who led the first lap of the day, as he's got his teammate Dylan Young right behind him as they're both out of Young Motorsports working together for the time being. And then I see two Gibbs cars working together. Although I think I just saw, oh my goodness, a massive crash! This is the huge one at Talladega. That's about half the field in a car flipping wildly. That's Anthony McCrory. Holy cow.